Yeah, no.
Okay, this meeting is being recorded by the host.
Yeah. And I'm going to start with the first question, Mark.
Yeah.
How do you define passion?
From my point of view, passion is that thing that when you don't have to think about it, you still are thinking about it. It's something that you do it because you feel like it, because you want to, and not because you have to. So if you're passionate about your work, you're not doing it because you just feel like getting it because you need the money. You're doing it because I hate to use the word passion, but you want to continue doing it so that you have an end result that's positive, and it ends up making you look good, and it ends up making other people happy. That's my definition of passion.
All right. And professional passion, what is it for you?
I've always enjoyed the marine industry ever since I started in 1992. That is my professional passion, but I think a couple times I've fallen short because I always wanted to direct it to the firefighting aspect of the marine industry, prevention and prevention of fires and combating fires. And I never have gotten enough of that ever since I've started, but I've tried to get more of that. But that's my passion. I also like the new construction aspect of the industry. That's another one of my passions. I like to see steel come together, put together, and see it float. I enjoy seeing that because before you had a piece of steel that couldn't do anything, and now you put it with another piece of steel and made it happen, and connected it and made it do something useful. So there's another one of my passions. Those are my passions.
Cool, cool. What kind of leadership is that you represent?
Um, Unfortunately, I don't have too much experience with leading large groups of people. I do have experience leading small groups of people. My leadership, well, I can describe it. It's give a little bit of guidance. If you have a task, here's the task. This is what we need to do. Give them a little bit of guidance, see if they can figure it out on their own. Get some ideas, like what are you going to do? Do you have any idea of how you should go about getting this job done? If they really don't understand, or they're struggling or something, okay, that's when you should jump in and say, okay, I'll give you a little bit of a help on this, and try to show them, try going this way or try going that way, push them in this direction. Again, reevaluate, see if they can take it from there on. If they're still struggling, then unfortunately you have to hold their hand a little bit, but it shouldn't be an issue for you. You should be able to do that. So I would characterize my leadership both in the marine industry and then also in the, you might hear me refer to the firefighting industry because I have experience doing landside, shoreside firefighting. So, and I do have experience leading people there too. So I refer back to that every once in a while. If you were to describe the type of leadership that I represent, that would be the way it is. Start off easy and then let them grow. And so they're able to take care of things by themselves. Hopefully they pick up on it well enough so that they don't really need to talk to me all that much, and that they'll be able to handle things themselves on their own. That's the kind of leadership that I represent.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. What kind of role models in leadership do you have, Mark?
I have been really, I'm 25 years out of university now. If I look back on the role models that I've had in the leadership, I can say I've really been blessed. I've had some fantastic people to look up to and to cheat off of, to see how they do things that have guided me. I mean, I've had bad ones as well, but I mean, you can't avoid that. I would have to go through at least 10 or 15 different people that I've worked for that have shown me things and how to do things and have been patient with me. I saw this question and I'm not sure how to answer it because I know you don't want their names, but if you want, I think what you're asking for is what have they done for me that has been positively affected, that has had a positive effect on me. Okay. that's what I kind of thought you meant by this question, but I just wanted to make sure. Well, I just told you about my leadership tactics, the kind of leadership that I represent. I represent it that way because that was what was done on me, and that seemed to work. So if I could think about a whole bunch of people that I would have a question, I have to go to them and ask, and they would answer it, and they would sit down, not give me a direct answer, but maybe sit down and figure things out with me so that I would be able to understand it, walk away and still be able to understand it, and not have to just try to remember the answer that was given. So they were patient, they took the time to explain, and they helped me to figure things out myself. They allowed me to make my mistakes so that I could really learn, because the best way to learn is from your mistakes. So those those people were the role models that I had that taught me that they were good leaders, and they taught me how to learn. They sat, they talked with me, and they allowed me to learn from my mistakes. They would also sit down. I'd like to add, they would also sit down, and if, say, for example, I needed publications in front of me, books in front of me to have to learn something, the books would be right there, and we would refer to this page or that page or the other page, say, this is where you would find the answer to the question you're asking. Go ahead and look in those pages and see if you can figure it out. And then things would be made easier on me, because I would sit there and read and say, oh, I understand why he's directing me to this page. So those are the role models. The role models that I had in my past, that is the way that they did things, and it worked for me.
Okay. How have you resolved conflict in your professional career?
Yeah, there's really only, from my point of view, there's really only one way to resolve conflict. You have to talk. To have a colleague that is just not communicating with you and has an issue, but you know that there's an issue, you're not going to get anything done if you don't communicate. You're not going to resolve any conflict. You're going to be stuck in the mud all of the time unless you sit and you discuss how the problem happened and what we can do to avoid it. And I don't want to say, you don't have to be confrontational, but just say, hey, can I speak to you for a few minutes, because there's a problem with what I don't know, I'll make it up as I go along. There's a problem with something that you did the other day, or there was a problem with something that I did the other day, and I really need to talk to you to get this taken care of. So please, can we just go over there and sit down and talk about this? It will take 5 minutes, hopefully, and then you resolve. That's how you resolve the conflict. If you don't talk to each other, you're not going to get anything done.
Have you ever fired anyone that you, if you have mediated in a conflict, have you ever been forced to choose between two co-workers in a big conflict they had?
No, I've never had an experience of that. I've made suggestions to whether or not to somebody who's above me, to whether or not this person should stay or this person should go. But I've never had to fire anybody myself. I've had supervisors come to me and say, what do you think about this? What do you think, what that person said the other day, or what that person did the other day? Are you okay with it? Yes, I am, or no, I'm not. And I'll give my opinion. But nobody has ever asked me, hey, you need to drop the hammer on this person or anything like that. That I don't have any experience with.
All right. Can you give a concrete example of a conflict you encountered and resolved?
Yeah, just recently, just a couple of weeks ago, there was an issue where on board a vessel, some work was outlined to be done, as in they wanted it done, and if the owner did this, this was going to be an extraordinary expense and time consuming as well. I mediated between them and the person who mandated the work, and I got the work reduced because it just wasn't necessary to have all that done. So, and it was actually I'll say a lack of communication from the person who was requiring the work to the owners of the vessel, saying that this needed to be done. He didn't communicate, in my opinion, he didn't communicate properly. So as a result, there was some confusion and anger from the owners of the vessel. I jumped in the middle. I said, come on, let's go take a look at this. And he looked at it, he said, okay, you know what, on second thought, maybe that doesn't need to be done like that. We can lessen the amount of work that I said needed to be done. He said, it's okay. You can do less than what needs to be done because it's not that bad. I thought all the parties were happy and everybody walked away. The owner didn't have to spend the time or the money, and the person who mandated the work didn't back down 100%.
Okay. That sounds a very good answer.
That made me feel good.
Yeah. You resolved it quite well.
Yeah, no, it took a little bit longer than I would have liked to, because we were always running around doing other things that took our concentration away from that. But nobody seemed to be angry about that. And the fact that it got resolved was, everybody's like, all right, way to go, way to go.
Well, that sounds great. All right, now to a tricky question. If a relative of yours confesses to you that he or she has committed a serious crime, would you report your relative to the police?
I would give them an opportunity to report themselves. Depending on how severe the crime was, a number of hours or a number of days, depends. But I would say, you really need to take this on yourself to take care of this. Otherwise, if I know about it and 3 years goes by and somebody else finds out about it, I'm liable. So why don't you just take care of this yourself, and we can put it to bed. You might remember the Bernie Madoff story. I don't know if you heard about that. I'm sure you heard about it.
Yeah, I heard about Bernie Madoff.
Yeah, if his sons hadn't turned him in, they would have been liable. I followed that story very closely because I'm a stock market investor, and I find that stuff interesting. And they had no choice; they had to hand in their own father. I would have done the same thing, but you're talking about $65 billion here. So I've never had that kind of stress in my life on me. So I can't relate to what they had to do, but they did the right thing. And I'm sure if I had to worry about $65 billion, I would have done the same thing. If it was stealing a candy bar out of a convenience store, maybe it's a little bit different. But yeah, that's what I would do. I'd give them an opportunity, let them resolve the conflict themselves, let them resolve the issue, let them report themselves, and then watch and see what happens.
All right. Have you ever reported any of your relatives to the police?
No, I've never had to do that.
All right, that sounds great.
Yeah, my relatives nobody's in the marine industry, so I don't know what they do too much, and they don't know what I do too much. So I can't imagine a situation like that ever happening. But
all right.
Let's hope it always stays that way.
Okay. Why I have noticed in your curriculum that you have a lot of ISO certifications. You have important ISO certifications.
Yeah, 9,000.
Yeah, and my question is, why is quality so important to you as a leader?
Yeah, your reputation as a leader is going to depend on the quality of your work. If you put out a shoddy product, nobody's going to want your product, and then your business goes down the drain. You have to put out a good product, or else you're finished as a businessman, or as in any industry you do. Having a piece of paper saying, "Look here, I'm qualified. I am a quality person because I have this certification." That's great, but you have to live up to it in the work that you do. So why is it so important? When people first meet you, they don't know, maybe that document is a forgery. You have to prove it. So that's how you prove it, by putting out a quality product.
In your professional career, has there any been superiors above you that has worked against you when you try to implement quality in their organization?
I might have a problem coming up with an example to give you. No, I can't think of any examples. No, I mean, anybody who follows like an ISO standard or any kind of quality standard, No, they want to enforce to the nth degree. Yeah, no, I can't think of anything like that.
So you have never been in a situation there where the bottom line is more important than the quality?
What I'm trying to do is think of an example where that ever happened, and I can't. I'm sorry, I can't think of anything I could give you as an example. I'm sorry.
All right, so that sounds great. You have been lucky.
I suppose I have.
Yeah. All right. How have you managed adversity in your career as a leader and as a regular professional?
You just can't give up because you are going to fail. It's going to happen once or twice. It's going to happen more than once or twice. So that's the adversity. How do you manage it? Learn from the lessons and learn from your mistakes. Write it down on a piece of paper if you need to. Write down your notes. What went wrong here that made you put out a bad product or something like that? What went wrong here that made you have a conflict? A little while ago, we were talking about conflicts that I encountered and resolved. What went wrong that started that conflict? Was it something I did? Well, if it is, then don't do that anymore. Was it something somebody else did? Well, then, all right. As far as you can be non-confrontational and not aggressive, figure out what went wrong and try to avoid it. And that's how you manage it, so that the next time you get confronted with a situation like this, it won't go bad for you.
Okay. All right.
Write it down on a piece of paper. I don't know. Just, write it down, make a note somewhere and put it on a bulletin board. Just don't forget.
All right. What has been your biggest defeat in your career?
I'd have to say that, yeah, I saw this question. I was going for I don't know what the standards are in Sweden, but we have a professional engineering license. I assume that Sweden has the same thing. If you take a test, you can be an EIT, engineering training, and then you wait a little while, and then you become a professional engineer after you take another test. I never got that, and I'm definitely disappointed with myself for not getting that.
All right.
I studied for it. I failed the test, and I didn't continue on. I just told you a little while ago, I managed adversity by not giving up. It's not that I meant to give up on the PE, but I just, other things come along. I had a lot of trips overseas. I had, things get in the way, so that something like obtaining your professional engineering license ends up not having the priority that it once did. And I'm definitely disappointed in myself for not following up on it. I know it's not too late, but there's always seems to be another distraction. It's disappointing.
Well, it's never too late to get a license.
No. I assume, I don't mean to get off the subject, but I assume that Sweden has the same standards. There's a professional engineering license for Sweden, I guess.
Yeah, they do actually.
So you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's a kind of a.
It's a stamp.
Yeah,
it's a stamp. You say, if I've reviewed these plans and I say these plans are satisfactory, you stamp the plans and that's it. You're a professional engineer. You have that. Yeah. So I guess it has the same thing. That's the one that jumps out at me the most.
Right. What has been your biggest success in your career?
Yeah, this is really tough. Any job that I've ever done that's successfully completed is a success in my career, and I look back on it with pride. I could give you so many examples. I don't know.
Just take the most important one.
Well, I'd go job by job. I'd say becoming a professionally certified firefighter. That helps me with my job in the marine industry because it's one can relate to the other. There's so much work in the marine industry has to do with firefighting. There's so much work there. So having that certification is really nice. Moving into an office in which things didn't go very well at first, and learning how they do things and then improving so that, people who had a negative opinion of me before, at the end of it, they don't have a negative opinion. That was definitely a success. And I could think about at least 2 or 3 offices that I could say that about. One of my ABS offices. Another success would be, I never wanted to go to West Africa. I never wanted to go to Nigeria, but I went there, and I was able to get the job done, and that this oil rig was able to go on working, and the company didn't lose any money. That was definitely a success. Getting the ISO 9000, I should have mentioned this one first. Getting the ISO 9001 certification for Skaugen Petrotrans. They started out without that certification, and I was able to say, here we go. Here's a certification, making that company happy with me, because that's why they brought me in there in the first place. Why are they giving me a job if I was unsuccessful with that? That would have been a waste of their time and money and my time. The job that I had to take care of in Oman, this port needed new cranes, and I went there and got them commissioned and successfully operating. That helped the port run a bit smoother, because they were having complaints about how inefficient they were because these cranes were not operating properly. That was definitely a success. The 2 vessels that I built in China is as much of a foreign country to me as it is to you, I'm sure. Being able to do it there, that made me feel, that was definitely, that was one of my successes as well. And maybe most recently, the new construction of the ships that I did in Philadelphia and up until 2019, that was a definite success as well. So those are the big ones. Those are the big ones in my career. I always wanted to have, being in the United States is great, and I love my country and I love being here and everything. But there's always so many other opportunities that I could see happening overseas. I always wanted to branch out a little bit and see those opportunities. So I'd say one of the biggest successes of my career is that I was able to do that to a certain extent. I mean, I haven't seen it all, but that would be one of my successes, because I was able to see different things in different places. And that's made me a stronger, more, I guess the word is diverse. I can consider myself a diverse engineer. I'd say those are my successes. There's been failures along the way. Some things have gone wrong. There have been failures along the way, but I try to concentrate on the successes.
Well, I looked at your CV. You have an impressive career as
Thanks very much.
in the maritime industry, and your line of work in quality is impressive. Very impressive. What have you thought about this candidate branding system that is being implemented here?
This has got to work, because it probably, what I think is that it makes things easier for everybody and makes it more efficient. You can take a person's face, put it on the screen, say, this is Mark Patricola. We think that this guy would be good for you. Perhaps you'd like to speak to him. And then instantly, the person who's thinking about bringing somebody onto his team knows right away. Oh, I see. Okay, I see how he talks. I see how he acts. I see how he is. You have access to my career background. You put the package all together. The person who's doing the interviewing knows a lot quicker than knows immediately what he's dealing with. I think it's efficient. That's the first word that comes to mind. Efficiency. So it sounds like it's a good way of going about things.
Yeah, in my professional career, people are focusing so much on employer branding that they forget about candidate branding as well, because the recruiters must somehow brand their top candidates to top clients. So in my professional view, I believe very strongly in candidate branding and this type of line of interview I'm doing.
I think maybe you're onto something big that everybody else is going to be doing it soon.
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for your time, Mark. You have been a splendid candidate with
My
your
pleasure. My
with your
pleasure.
with your impressive career. So I really do hope that we get to fill you in a position here in Sweden.
Okay. If I don't hear from you in about a month or so, or maybe I'll reach out to you sometime in a couple of a month or so after if I don't hear from you, just to keep the lines of communication open, just for that purpose.
No, I don't think it will take so long. I believe we will have plenty of responses from companies.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks very much for the chance to speak to you. I'm glad we got this done.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you